Hello friends and welcome to this another chapter of your interview skill course. In this chapter, today we will have a look at another tricky question. And this question is, what are your long-term objectives? This is normally asked to understand that how you can align with an organization. So it is important that you understand that why this question is asked, but before going into those questions, let us understand that how differently these questions can be asked in a different way. So one is obviously that what are your long-term goals? Another would be, where would you like to be in next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What is your end goal in your career? Where do you see yourself progressing in your job? What do you think will be your last job before retirement? So these are some few forms of questions which can be asked in a different way. Now let us understand why basically the interview is asking this question. The interview is asking to align expectations for the role with your long-term expectations. While interview typically wants solid alignment for a near term, that is below 5 years, or more latitude can go and will be given for longer term goals. However, this question is often asked to explore whether the candidate has a long-term goals which cannot be met by the employer. It is also used as a reality check to see if the candidate has realistic goals. So many times when you ask somebody who is a fresher, then ask what are your long-term goals, then he would say that I want to become, within next 5 years I want to become a general manager or a vice president. So which are not realistic. So finally, it is also used as a measure of the ambition of the candidate. So how much ambitious you are, how much progressive thinking you are having. So these can be easily gauged from these kind of questions. And if the individual is more ambitious, or say not that much ambitious, and the role expectations of the job are different, then interview can assess the alignment that needs to be done while selecting a candidate. So if you see how you should basically be going to for this question. So if the short-term goal question has not been asked yet, right, start briefly addressing with the near-term goals. Then focus on your career direction and trajectory based upon being successful in role during the period of that time, yet showing flexibility for taking on a variety of roles over the course of your career to broaden your knowledge and exposure. You want to be ambitious, yet not very overly ambitious. Here it is important for you to understand that when you project these things, it should not look like that you are too much ambitious and you are too much aggressive towards your career and career progression, because many a times, I have personally felt that whenever, if an over-ambitious guy is there, right, whatever goes in the mind of an interviewer while interviewing a candidate is that apart from being ambitious, whether he will be able to match up with the team members or not. Because it is quite possible that the team members who are not that much aggressive, so bringing an over-talented or extremely talented fellow in an organization might be at some point of time, it may be a risk also. Right? So the approach should be start with your short term. If the short term goals have not been asked for, and then focus on your career direction. So these are the two keywords, and important thing here to remember is that you should not be over ambitious, or you should not look over ambitious. So if we see, then you can say that in long term, now let us see how you can best possibly give the answers, right? So you can start with that. In the long term future, I am planning to become a subject matter expert in my field. So I do want to prepare myself for future promotions and opportunities if they come about. I am working to prepare myself for a managerial position in future by taking lead roles in some project teams, such as my current network integration project, or here you may refer what kind of initiatives that you have been taking. And as you grow in an organization, as you go into the manager, assistant, senior manager, then deputy general manager and general manager positions, right? Building up relationship building becomes one of the major part of your responsibility, right? So along with your technical expertise, you also need to work on those things. So on a long-term basis, you can understand that how you can go about it. So, if you're a student and if you're a fresh young professional, then first you need to create a base. So as a student or as a fresher, when you are going for these kind of questions, right, you can start by creating a base and then show potential that yes, you have the potential and ability to do the job. And by giving relevant examples, you can also quote what kind of long-term intervention, long-term career objectives you have. So that will give him brief idea, the interviewer a brief idea about how you can be placed in an organization and how your career development can be planned for a long-term perspective, right? So all these things will basically establish a trust. So you can take examples of your internship where you had taken these kind of projects, and how your internships or your selection of your organization for internship was having integration with your long-term perspective. So as we said earlier that don't overrate yourself, right? Whenever you say the long-term objectives, try to be realistic. I have seen many people like, sir, I want to become vice president within next 5 years or next 10 years, right? So it is quite not possible. And the most important thing is that you need to be sounded very practical, realistic, and down to earth and a grounded person, right? So never overrate or exaggerate things, so which will give a wrong impression about yourself to the interviewer. And basically, if we see, then interviewer would never prefer over smart people or people who are too much ambitious, right? Then you need to, if you have such aggressive long-term plans, then you need to find an organization which is equally aggressive like you. So ultimately, only in these things, always remember one thing: don't overrate yourself and be realistic. Right, friends, this brings us to the end of another question. So we have seen how if a question of long-term objective has been asked, then how you should handle it. So most important thing in this is that you need to understand why the interviewer is asking this question. That is number one. And number two is that don't overrate yourself and be realistic and practical and grounded to earth. Right, friends? Thank you very much for patiently listening to this chapter. See you in next chapter. Goodbye.